light week for Batman. Last week kicked off Fear State with Fear State Alpha, which recapped basically everything that's been happening with Batman since Infinite Frontier, and then set the stage for Scarecrow's War on Gotham, as well as all of the titles that are going to be tying in with the event. So in August, we did have a few books that come out. I Am Batman 0, Catwoman 34, Harley Quinn 6, and Batman Fear State Alpha 1. Of all of those besides Alpha, the only one that really felt like it was truly a tie-in to me was I Am Batman 0, which has a teaser page in Alpha. If you read I Am Batman 0, I'd actually recommend reading this first, even though it shows up earlier in the checklist. But now we're going to be getting in this month to Fear State proper. So for the titles that we had coming out this week, for Fear State, it was just the one book, Batman 112, which I'll be reviewing for you guys today. We also had Batman Catwoman number 7, which I did not pick up, will not be reviewing since it started before Infinite Frontier. And finally, The Joker Presents a Puzzle Box issue 2. I did read the first issue of this and actually thought it was pretty enjoyable. It's kind of fun seeing Joker tell a story from his perspective, because it's obviously very embellished and all full of lies, but you get to see that acted out in the artwork, which is kind of fun. I got some chuckles out of it, was curious to see where it's going, so we'll see how issue 2 is. That said, I won't actually be doing a full review for this one, since it does appear to be out of the current Batman continuity, as Jim Gordon is the commissioner. Although I will say it does feature Punchline, so it seems to be in Batman's recent past if it is in current continuity. If you like Punchline, it might be worth checking it out. Otherwise, that was it for main Batman titles. DC did put out Suicide Squad Get Joker number 2, which obviously heavily features the Joker and Harley Quinn. And then Infinite Frontier number 6 wrapped up, which obviously heavily featured Flashpoint Batman. So if you don't feel like you're getting your fix, that's a couple other places you could probably look. For me, I'm just going to be sticking with Batman 112 and Joker Puzzle Box. So as I said at the beginning of the video, only one review for you guys today, but it's a big one. Batman 112, the first part of James Tynion's last arc on Batman. Fear State Part 1. I hate to say it because I know I sound a little bit like a broken record. I was loving James Tynion's run on Batman coming out of Joker War. I think he just really ramped up the story, started throwing in a bunch of new characters, and really trying to see where he could go with Gotham City. Whether it's from him or just editorial mandate from DC, they've been really ramping up this sort of cyberpunk world of Batman and going more away from the gothic Gotham that we've seen in the past. I think this is a cool direction to go, especially with them introducing Batman 89 as its own sort of pastiche. It's a cool way to differentiate modern Batman from 80s Batman from 60s Batman. So it'll be interesting to see if this sort of new style of Gotham City really takes hold and continues on. How will people look back on it in the long term? All of that said, the issues leading up to Fear State have not particularly impressed me. I really liked the first issue when we kind of understood what the Magistrate was and what they were kind of headed towards. Introducing RoboCop into the Batman universe is kind of great, but it has gotten so muddled. We've introduced Punchline, Ghostmaker, Peacekeeper, Miracle Molly, Clown Hunter. The list just goes on and on and on, and we're trying to juggle all these different characters, all with their own agendas, while still balancing bringing Cassandra Cain back, bringing Spoiler back, and all of these legacy characters that are now coexisting in the new DC universe. James Tynion has really sold this story as really giving the Scarecrow his due, which I'm just not sure that he's a character that hasn't had his due. Like, I don't feel like people look at Scarecrow as an irrelevant villain anymore that needs to be reinvented. That said, I mean, I like what they've done with him. It's interesting enough. It's just, I'm not sure that it justifies this big of a scale event. But nonetheless, it is nice to have kind of focus back on the story, because now it's down to Batman and the city versus Scarecrow. But as we continue in, we just keep introducing more and more stuff. While in Joker War, Oracle was sort of a beacon of hope for the city that helped them get through that crisis. Now, James Tynion has introduced us to the Anti-Oracle, who is now basically doing the same thing, but is poison for Gotham's soul and is saying all the wrong things to further generate fear amongst the populace. I'm not sure if it was introduced first in Alpha, but we've got Queen Ivy, who seems to be a separate character from regular Poison Ivy that needs to be reunited with traditional Poison Ivy, who's a much more evil, nefarious villain. It's basically like the darkest aspects of Poison Ivy now in her own character. And finally, spoilers. At the end of the issue, Simon Saint, since Peacekeeper has gone crazy, has to introduce a new Peacekeeper. So instead of Peacekeeper 1, now we're going to get the bigger and badder Peacekeeper X as a new villain. And this is where the story really lost me, because like so much of this was just paying off the setup that was the first 6 or so issues of the Cowardly lot, which was all set up for this in the first place. But now we leave things off on a cliffhanger, which is a cliffhanger we've already had, which is Simon Saint is introducing a Peacekeeper. Big whoop. Like, I don't know. I don't understand why this is supposed to be so exciting. And it just feels like a rehash of something we literally did 2 issues ago. So overall, for the main story at least, Batman 112, Fear State Part 1, honestly was a bust. I'm not going to say I have very low expectations for Fear State moving forward. I think it has yet to be seen where it can go. That said, I feel like I've been saying that now for 4 issues in Batman. And it's time for put the pedal to the metal, let the rubber hit the road, and let's get this story rolling. I think Detective Comics, while it started kind of muddled, has done a way better job of recovering and showing that all these different points were coming to a conclusion that made sense and felt like it was building to something. This just feels like too much too fast. Still, even as we're moving into the new big event with Fear State. I really hope Tynion pulls this out, though, because I have really enjoyed his run. I thought he's really done a lot to rehabilitate the character after Tom King's somewhat disastrous run. So I would love for him to finish strong, and I am sad to know that he's leaving. Now, also in this issue, we do get a backup story with Clown Hunter. So this is kind of interesting, because last month we got Clown Hunter in Batman Secret Files, which I did not talk about this issue since I didn't do an August update. But the thing that struck me about this is back in July when they started these Secret Files, I made the joke that, of course, none of these stories could have been told in backup stories. Like, they had to get their own issues. Of course, I was being sarcastic. With Batman Secret Files Clown Hunter, it seems really, really clear that this story was originally supposed to be told in a backup story for an issue of either Urban Legends or Batman or something. There are very, very clear delineating points where you get a cliffhanger. For example, right here, where he's about to die, and you see Punchline waving goodbye to him. By the way, if you're a Punchline fan, you do want to pick up Clown Hunter #1. And then we pick up the story with a little bit of a recap and a re-telegraphing of the cliffhanger before the story flashes back and we resume telling the story. And another third of the way through the book, you get exactly the same thing again. They know they can win because they're never, ever, ever alone. And again, he's about to get attacked by a whole bunch of clowns. Cut to Gotham Academy 1 year ago, where we pick up the story. It just is so clear that this book was intended to be told in several parts. Now, that said, going into the backup story for this, it does reference things that are in that Secret Files issue. So it's clear that those stories had to get published at some point before Clown Hunter DIY 1 of 3. And DIY had to get started because it is basically an extended story of how Clown Hunter gets poisoned by Scarecrow. So it has to happen during Fear State. And it seems like they just ran out of time. And it makes me wonder how much of these issues are getting shuffled around and condensed. They obviously commissioned this work for Clown Hunter. So why didn't it make it into a backup story? Why did it end up being separated? Was that a decision because they wanted an extra Clown Hunter issue? Or because they just ran out of time because they changed the timetable on how Fear State was rolling out? I just find myself with a lot of questions on that. I thought it was kind of interesting, so I figured I'd share with you guys. Now, all of that said, the Clown Hunter backup story, it was fine. Ultimately, the whole thing is a dream, basically. Spoilers. So, Clown Hunter thinks he got away from the Scarecrow. He actually didn't, and he is now afraid So there you go, Fear State. I think we're going to get a lot of that in this. I like Scarecrow as a villain, but he's a little one note, so it's going to be interesting to see. I really, again, I hope they pull it out. But anyway, those are my extended thoughts on Batman 112. Went a little bit more in detail than I normally would on this, just because it was the only issue this week. So hope you enjoyed my review. Did you pick it up? What'd you think of it? Let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next week, and hope you guys have a great week in comics.